how you're going to try to layer over an analog monetary system over a digital economy. I just can't see how that's going to happen. And I can't also see how the banks, the central banks, are going to produce a digital dollar and claim that it solves the problem when it only digitizes the previous one. The problem's not in the paper. We're not trying to solve a tree problem of printing paper. We're trying to solve a monetary crisis, which has been mismanaged since they took it off the gold standard and started backing their economy with guns, or their currency with guns and military. And the worst part here, Marvin, the thing that scares me the most is it worked for 50 years, but I mean, like any Ponzi scheme, it works until it doesn't, right? And let's face it, what they're doing has been a Ponzi scheme, because you're generating the spending from the bottom, because you're forcing countries around the world to use your dollar, because you price everything, all commodities in it, from the petrodollar onwards. So these countries are obligated to use your global currency as a reserve currency. Money goes into the bottom of the pyramid and it comes out of the top. Only the richest get their money out of it. And we've seen the wealth distribution in the last 2 years. I think we're talking about, is it 13 trillion or something? It's ridiculous, the amount that has been transferred from the middle class to the elite. When you go to the very core of it, you fix that problem with this perfect system, like this immutable system that is transparent and basically unhackable and uncensorable. It leads you through this rabbit hole where you start to understand about geopolitics. You start to understand philosophy. What are the origins of money? What is money? All of these questions open up whole new rabbit holes for you. So I can say I've really become a different person. It's giving people back that personal custody and sovereignty over their money and the decisions that they make with it. When you change that, you change the world, because we're changing something, as I said, so primal and fundamental that everything else around it corrects.
A lot of people get lured into the smaller ones, which is not wrong if you studied it. What's your advice? What's your advice for them? Because you have a very, very good, in my opinion, strong case of someone who's focusing on the ones that are built to last, and you're in it not just for the gains of today, but sometime later on, because there's a lot of information out there that's telling people that focus on this ones first, and a lot of people who don't have a lot of background, I've seen them lose a lot of money.
Let me start by saying, whatever YouTuber says, this is not financial advice, but so my what I would tell people, that friends of mine that would ask, I would say this. Again, what are you doing it for? What's your why? Do you have a why? If your why is just money, then you could also just go to the casino. You probably get instant returns, because you're same principle. If you don't know what a Doge does or what a Shiba does and all that, but you're just, because Elon tweeted and all that, well, I'm not going to hit on them, because some people have made money out of that, but you got to know what you're in for. So what I tell people now is just set yourself some rules when you're calm, right? Don't wait for the moment, because this roller coaster, believe me, can be really volatile. So what you need to do is tell yourself what your investment strategy will be. And you could say, let's say 60% Bitcoin, 15, and then you'd have a 5%, depending on your risk appetite, that you devote to play, right? Safe Moon, because remember I told you about Safe Moon, and the 300 became 10,000, all that. Well, it's back down to, I don't know. He's still ahead, but it's not 10,000 anymore. It's so far. It's like, I don't even know if it's 1,000 now. But you see what happens. He held on. He was into the FOMO and stuff, but he's still ahead. But the thing is, you have to understand your own rules, because when that emotion kicks in, that's the worst time to ask yourself what to do. The worst. But if you tell yourself, I'm going to buy at this point and sell at this point, no matter what, even if the market's moving in a different way and you're feeling something else, you say, no, I made this decision when I was calm, okay, when I had a clearer set of vision of the facts. And then I stick to that. It's discipline. Like anything else, it's discipline. You will make some mistakes. I don't think you should aim for a complete, especially in crypto, a complete perfect record. What you're trying to do is you're trying to, well, first, in my case, change the world. So that's my primary objective. I'm not going to lie and say I don't want to make money out of it. Of course, I cannot lose money out of it, and I want to do everything I can to make money out of it. But when you're looking at it from that mission vision statement, it's so much easier to ride out the dips. You can, because you have a greater purpose that you're looking at. It's like life. I mean, anything you do in life, if you're doing it with higher purpose, you can go through the hardships and stuff. You just see it differently. You're not myopic in your view. So just be very, very careful and just set yourself a budget that you're willing to play with. And that budget, what you play with the high risk coins, it's like, treat it like casino now, because you don't know. But then the rest that have utility, understand what they do. Believe me, it's not just due diligence. It's actually going to enhance your experience because you understand why. So when the reward comes in, it's going to be twofold, threefold, tenfold, because you've achieved your goal. Does that make sense? Because I place a lot of value on that. So if the best case scenario ends up for me where Bitcoin goes to 150 or 200,000, and it's already adopted, mass adoption, and it's solved the unbanked problem, and it's empowered people who would never have been productive members of society into productive members simply because now they have access into a system that's decentralized and non-censorable, the win is compounded, because that alone should be enough to just make you, wow, feel great. And then you got money on top of it. That's what I'm aiming for. And so really ask yourself your why regularly, because if you're just going in it, just, aping in, as they say, or FOMOing in, marami kaming casino. Ang dami. Dun na lang kayo.
Word for the wise. And it's so important that people look at the value into it also, and that, because that will give you also the conviction when there are times that you're seeing a lot of corrections, and corrections are very, very normal in the cryptocurrency market. I'm sure you've experienced your share of yung parang mapapapikit ka na matawa with all.
Today lang, Marvin, today lang. Just hours before we got online, bang! This red candle came from nowhere. I was like, what happened there? I was writing my weekly column, so I don't check. And then, I started my weekly column, it was 48, and then I checked, what the hell? 45. But yeah, it's erratic, but it's a long-term commitment.
So what's your thought process when that's going on? 48 to 45, or even ADA. ADA was at 3.1 just a couple of weeks ago, dropped to around, it's currently 2.2, 2.3 right now. What's going through your head while that's happening?
Well, I'm a hodler for sure. So I look at this, I zoom out. I always zoom out when this happens, because it's the only way to get perspective. And when I zoom out, I go, all right, overall, over the last 12 years of Bitcoin, it has risen. I can't even count anymore how many 1,000% that Bitcoin has consistently, year over year, has provided returns, big returns. So that's just on a 12-month period. So all you have to do is just zoom out to that, and you can see that you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine, but you have to have a long-term view. It really comes down to it. It's like, that's why companies have mission and vision. In marriage, you have a commitment, because it gets you through the hard times. I mean, if you didn't have that commitment and stuff like that, well, the first fight you have, wag na, diba? You have to have something deeper, something higher than yourself, a purpose greater than yourself. And in this case, it's, for me, I really do believe that the world is changing so fast. This is going to be the decade of disruptions. 2020 to 2030, I think we're going to see the 5 pillars of the economy, global economy, being disrupted. We're seeing finance being disrupted now. We saw information already being disrupted. It's going to be disrupted even further, because the disruption happened into social media, but it was still centralized. I think we're seeing a decentralized social media going to be coming out over the blockchain, or using part of the blockchain technology. We have food being disrupted. We have natural resources being disrupted. So many of these things are going to change the world. So you got to get on board fast. And I cannot imagine how you're going to try to layer over an analog monetary system over a digital economy. I just can't see how that's going to happen. And I can't also see how the central banks, are going to produce a digital dollar and claim that it solves the problem when it only digitizes the previous one. The problem's not in the paper. We're not trying to solve a tree problem of printing paper. We're trying to solve a monetary crisis, which has been mismanaged since they took it off the gold standard and started backing their economy with guns, or their currency with guns and military. And the worst part here, Marvin, the thing that scares me the most is it worked for 50 years, but I mean, like any Ponzi scheme, it works until it doesn't, right? And let's face it, what they're doing has been a Ponzi scheme, because you're generating the spending from the bottom, because you're forcing countries around the world to use your dollar, because you price everything, all commodities in it, from the petrodollar onwards. So these countries are obligated to use your global currency as a reserve currency. Money goes into the bottom of the pyramid, and it comes out of the top. Only the richest get their money out of it. And we've seen the wealth distribution in the last 2 years. I think we're talking about, is it 13 trillion or something? It's ridiculous, the amount that has been transferred from the middle class to the elite. You would never seen in the history of mankind this inequality. I mean, Elon Musk is worth what? I can't even count anymore. Is it 200, 150? Jeff Bezos is somewhere around there. They're flying to the moon for pleasure trips, literally. This can't continue. This is the problem I'm involved in trying to solve, or I'm investing in trying to solve. The world cannot continue like this. The disparity is too great, and it's really a direct result of monetary policy. It's a crisis right now. And then if you look at the Afghan withdrawal, that was the only thing backing the U.S. dollar, was military might, weapons, guns, violence, war. If you don't follow us, we are going to come in with our weapons. But then if you're Russia, if you're China, if you're one of these big economies, Brazil, and you turn around and go, and wait, just checking, if we don't use the US dollar again, what happens? Oh, you'll invade. What happened in Afghanistan? You couldn't control the Taliban. They had like cleavers and stuff. It takes the curtains off. And this is what worries me the most, actually, is now that the curtains have been pulled and everybody can see that the US superpower is not quite the superpower that they show in Hollywood. It can lead to a lot of problems for their monetary policy and the global reserve currency. And so this is the long-term view that I have. If you don't invest in something that's going to adapt to the digital economy, you're going to get left behind. You're going to be at the mercy of whatever is left behind. It's something I feel so strongly about that I'm willing to invest in it, and just basically on the problem it solves alone. So that's how I feel.
I hope people hear this and people see this, because we're all on equal footing. Everyone right now, 2021, has an equal opportunity to come into this, start investing into it, and actually take the time to learn what it is. And a lot of people have been saying that the bubble, it's gonna crash, it's gonna go to zero. It survived more than a decade. The fact that it has done that and it has crashed and gone back up again shows a lot of resilience into something that's called as a scam or a bubble altogether. And I'll say this, the fact that El Salvador added it already as a reserve currency, it will dispel already all notions that it's going to zero, because every time it drops, you now have a central bank who has the ability to keep on buying and will support the price already. And how could something go to zero when you have that? You mentioned about the long-term projection of Bitcoin, what it solves, and you mentioned that you're a hodler. There's so many ways on people value Bitcoin. There's the stock to flow model, there's the halving cycle, people use technical analysis, people use the cost to mine it. But a lot of those analysis are pointing out to 100,000 BTC against the dollar at some point over the next few months. Are you a person who will actually sell later on? And if you will sell, are you bringing that to fiat, or is it still staying into cryptocurrencies?
My Satoshis, because I'm not that heavily invested. But my Satoshis are like my children now. I don't want to get, how do you choose one over the other, right? But then there is wisdom also in taking profit. So I don't think I can be that much of a maximalist in terms of like just hodl. Just like somebody says, I'm an EDSA maximalist. There's only one road for me. Don't make any Ethereum or Cardano. No. We have to diversify. So I would like to realize the gain as early as now, because I want to make sure it feels real and tangible. If it's just in my Binance account or my Ledger wallet and it's just numbers and whatever, but I can't buy anything, I haven't bought anything with it, it won't feel real. So I think in order to realize the gain, to be able to turn into something tangible, so that it gives me also the confidence that this is real money. This is not just, monopoly money or play money. This can buy whatever, an asset. And that's what's key here. And that's what I think newbies who are listening should know about, is that you touched on it, and I want to just elaborate a bit when you talked about never has been a better time in history, or a time in history where it's democratized. This investments has been democratized because we've never been able, the gap in inequality between the rich and the poor is precisely because the dollar is inflating, right? Artificially inflating because of the money printing. So it only, what people can do, the rich can buy assets and then turn them into, and keep selling, and the rich get richer, whereas the poor don't have access to those assets. They just don't. They cannot buy a house in Menlo Park in San Francisco, or any of these places. Just like, somebody here who's a middle class family struggling can't buy their Forbes Park lot or whatever. So they will just always be behind the eight ball. They'll always just be reacting and trying to get their heads above water. For the first time in history, we've been able to tokenize land rights or property rights. Call them property rights. It's like buying this much of Forbes Park. You can't buy the lot. Well, you bought 1 meter or half a square meter of it, or quarter of a half of a square meter. It's still, you have as much stake as anyone else. Your 1 Satoshi is worth the same as my Satoshi, worth the same as Ayala Zobel's Satoshi and Henry C. Anyone's Satoshi, right? It's all the same. And that's what I think the democratizing of investment has really happened. So to answer your question, I've been thinking about maybe letting go of half of what my investment is, just to realize the profit. Stable coins first. I might, get into stable coins just to sit it there because I understand also once you take it out, you will be subject to taxes. I believe we do a capital gain system tax here. It's so early for me, so I have not been able to take any profit yet. So when you do take profit and you turn it into fiat, I'll have to study how the BIR works and all that, because I want to make sure that I do that properly. So I might keep it in stable coins first. And then from there, maybe property, if there's enough. Obviously, if you get enough of it, buy something of value. I can't buy a property with it, but something of hard value that I can say, that's my Bitcoin right there. Tunay yan, eh? It's not any more magic money. All right, it could be maybe my kid's college plan or something like that. You know what I mean? It's real. It put a kid to school or something like that. Then I think I will be able to really become an evangelist of Bitcoin. as if I could get any worse than I am now. No, but I think if I get my first realized gain.
Or you might see a video of you. Look at my yacht. Just kidding. But
Marvin, I will be on my island there, living autonomously from the world, just enjoying life. No. I would love to spend, if that happens. I've thought about it. If that happens, I would love to dedicate my platform to informing people. I'm just very careful about it now, because I know I'm new. I know I don't offer financial advice. I also know that I don't have any realized gains, so I don't want to ever position myself or try to posture myself as some kind of crypto influencer or authority in the game. No, I can share you my personal experience on this podcast. I love it. That's why I'm so grateful you asked, because it feels like you're asking me, I'm telling you my story. But for me to actually, get on myself and start evangelizing, I'm not ready for that. And I'm also not ready to take on the responsibility of other people's investment. It's something that's very personal. It's something that every risk appetite is different, and I can't tell you. And I do not want responsibility, because even just in my small circle, you were asking me about how do you feel today, like when it dropped from 48 to 45 and like a short, like one candle. I'm okay, but it's the phone calls I get from all the friends that I've talked to that bother me, because they're like, "Oi, ano ba?" And you're like, "Calm down. You sound like me in May. Just relax." But imagine if you do that. I'm doing that with family and friends. That's okay. But if I was dealing with the public and I see it happen, like every time there's a drop and you go onto YouTube or Twitter, oh my God, the hate on the influencers. You told me it would be 100,000. I lost my house. You cannot communicate this effectively to hundreds of thousands of people. I just don't want that responsibility yet. But if I make $1 million out of it one day, yes, by all means.
Just to go back to what you said, no, this show is honored to have you. Minsan lang magkaroon ng gwapo sa show na to. So it's
Woo!
parang tumataas yung level ng ano eh. Ng
Oh,
level.
I've seen Tony on this show.
I'm interested about this. You mentioned about leveling the playing field. Axie Infinity, play to earn games have been booming right now, and in my opinion, it has brought cryptos mainstream, because for you to be able to play Axie, there's so many steps. Just transferring it from fiat to an exchange, transferring that to ETH, then transferring that to a MetaMask wallet, then bridging that to Ronin, and then buying an NFT. Not a lot of people do that. You're taking this entire craze as a whole.
Okay, firstly, I want to address the thing about all the difficulties that you just mentioned, because I see all these difficulties as opportunity, because anyone that solves those problems is a disruptor. So that's going to happen soon, because if people are willing to jump through all those hoops, like you said, it tells you something about the viability of the project. Think about it. Why would people do this when there's so many traditional systems that they're not only endorsed to, but actually forced to in many ways use. Yet they're willing to go through it's almost backdoorish. It's perfectly legal, but there's a backdoor vibe to the whole Axie community, because it's not supported or recognized by authorities, right? In fact, the BIR came out and started, threatening and all that. On a personal level, I don't understand Axie, and I'm not going to invest in understanding it, only because, like I said, I only keep to a certain amount of coins because I don't want to overwhelm myself. But I appreciate it because I have friends that know a whole lot more than me. People like Luis Buenaventura and stuff, who keeps talking about it. It is, I think, the future, probably more so even than Bitcoin, for this country. Luis made a very good point in one of his newsletters that I thought was brilliant, because he said he's going to stop talking about Bitcoin for a while and crypto and focus on NFT and Axie. And the reason for that is, he said, I think this is more suited to the Philippine market because it's super tokenized. Your returns can be on the 15th and the 30th, and you can earn like that. So I think it's a phenomenon that is worth not just exploring, but developing and supporting, because, as I said, what does it tell you when people are willing to go through so many hoops just to do something that's obviously a little bit more difficult than it should be? If you develop that and you made that easier, and you actually gave it a growth pattern, or you gave it some framework so that we could see where we want to put this, right? I mean, Marvin, who knows, this could replace the BPO industry. How can we even know, right? I mean, the BPO industry is under a lot of threat, with AI. Yeah, that's been one of our major sources of our economy, is through that. What happens if AI kicks in with the voice, and that happens fast? I mean, we've already seen so many automated processes take away jobs within that sector, but the big one will be when the automated voice really starts taking off mainstream and taking actual jobs from human beings already. We need something for these people to go to. We need to be encouraging people to start taking opportunities that are out there. Just because regulators don't understand it, it doesn't make it wrong. We are moving at hyper pace now. As I mentioned before about the decade of disruption, this is one of them. Gaming and play to earn it's just fascinating, because, I mean, who would have ever thought you'd get paid to play video games? But people are. I mean, I stopped harassing my son already, my youngest. I stopped picking on him for playing on the PlayStation. Now I'm like, instead of do your homework, have you done your PlayStation today? Are you doing your Axie? Get back there and do your Axie. No, not that bad, but it's going to get to that stage. And this is again, we're stuck in all these social constructs that we've grown up with. That there's traditional ways of making money. This is what it looks like to be successful, and this is how the world has changed so much. We've got millionaires that are 10-year-old unboxers and stuff on YouTube that have been, and that's not new, right? We've had those for 10 years now. Like kids making more money than their parents just by unboxing toys or dancing on TikTok or something like that. You cannot discount that fact. So to think that gaming is not going to become a legitimate source of income through a play-to-earn capacity, when the gaming industry is already even bigger in some ways than the movie industry, like Call of Duty, I think I was told is over $1 billion to develop the game. I don't think there's a movie out there that's hit 1 billion yet, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sure the comments somebody will correct me, but this last I know of, I don't believe there's $1 billion movie that was made, and yet it costs over $1 billion to make Call of Duty. I mean, that's the industry you're in, and this industry drives other industries, virtual reality, all of these other things. And if you could wrap it up in a game, who said we weren't allowed to have fun while we earn? It's just been a notion that's been drummed into our brains since we were kids, that we have to work hard, we have to go to work and swap our time for money. But that was the worst advice I was ever given financially, if I look back on it, because I only have 24 hours in a day, and I need 8 of them to sleep, and I need about another at least 5 or 6 to do what, other things aside from work. What am I going to earn? What am I going to earn? How am I going to get that yacht that we talked about and that Lambo if I'm going to swap my time for money and just sell myself by the hour? I have a ceiling to that. I'm not in any way, discouraging people who do that, because, we all have our ladder, and we have to, and I've done that for many years. But once you reach a certain point in life where you can put a little bit away after you've worked for your hourly rate and you've done those types of jobs like I did all my life, it was only 44, 45 when I started to get just a little bit of disposable income. Before that, it was hand to mouth for the entire 45 years of my life. I mean, like, it was a choice between sometimes electricity or water almost every single month. What are we going to do? So to be able to invest now and having that little bit extra, I think it's just, I hope more and more people realize that the future of investing is investing in the future. All of the things that it opens your eyes to, because they're all interconnected. And once you understand that, I'm pretty sure that you won't worry about the dips anymore, because your vision is so far ahead. You're so empowered by what you could possibly change and be a part of that the financial reward will just be that gravy on top of it.